And my first guest today, as you can see in the background back there, hey, is the star and co-writer of the critically acclaimed thriller that you can find right now on Netflix called Hush. This is Kate Siegel. How are you, Kate?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on the show. So exciting.
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about Hush. You play Maddie, our heroine. You also co-wrote the script, and it's based on Maddie is basically a deaf woman living sort of on her own, doing her thing, gets stalked by a serial killer or something, some kind of horrible man. And it is a very sort of simple film in that it is kind of one location, very little dialogue, very little characters other than, there's a handful of characters, but it is the most riveting, thrilling, exciting movie ever, in my opinion. So,
thank you.
You're welcome. So tell me a little bit about how you came up with the idea for Hush.
Well, my husband and I were at dinner, and we were talking about movies that we love, and we were talking about Wait Until Dark, which is an Audrey Hepburn movie about a blind woman who is stalked by a killer. And we were talking about other home invasion movies like The Strangers, and Mike had always wanted to do a movie that really played with sound and how they utilize sound in horror films. And by the time dessert was served, we pretty much had the entire outline for Hush. And I think at some point I had made some joke about how actors hate seeing themselves talk on screen. And so Mike was like, yeah, let's just get rid of it. Let's get rid of talking.
Right, perfect. You don't have to talk.
And that was, and it ended up working out really well for the movie.
So you co-wrote this with your husband, Mike Flanagan, who is a director, also sort of specializing in this genre. You guys worked together on a film. Is that how you met?
We did. We actually worked together on a film called Oculus that we had done about 4 years before that. And he actually was a very classy guy and didn't ask me out on a date until after shooting was done. And
very professional. Great job, Mike. Yeah. So cool. So you guys obviously connect on this sort of level of this genre. Like you're obviously able to work together professionally. How was that during the shooting and the making of this film?
Well, it's so interesting because we had been dating when we decided to do Hush. We weren't married yet. And once it was done, 18 days of night shoots only, we decided that if we could get through that without killing each other, marriage is a cakewalk.
Totally. Absolutely.
And so knowing that, diving into a really difficult character and having to embody her challenges, it was very, very nice to come home to somebody who could be there, having been there all day, and kind of help me relax. Also, I trusted him implicitly. I think he has excellent taste. And so whatever he told me to do, well, almost whatever he told me to do, can be a compliment, I was willing to trust him.
Yeah, that must have been really cool to kind of have him there with you during that process. Like you said, it was very challenging. I imagine extremely draining. Everything that your character has to go through, as the actor, you have to go through it. So I'm sure you were absolutely spent by the time shooting was done for the day. And sometimes if you're going home to your husband who wasn't there all day, it's maybe hard to explain. Like, you don't understand. Like, I was just like covered in blood. And
yeah. Going home was happening at 7 in the morning. I was going to work at 4 and just gone all night. And so I think a non-industry husband might be like, hey, I'm not into the schedule very much. And also I'd come home and just collapse into bed. And so, at the time I was super green. I had never carried a movie. I hadn't done much more than indie film and the occasional tiny, tiny, tiny TV spot. So I kind of had no idea what I was asking for when I would say things like, I want to do my own stunts. That's not always the actress I wanted to be, but it was very physically draining. And without Chuck Gordon, our stunt coordinator, there's no way I could have gotten out of this movie alive.
Yeah, that must have been totally crazy. But let's talk about that for a minute. So, yeah, you co-wrote this script, and you got to the point where you're obviously pitching this movie now, which is a huge step. I mean, I think a lot of people who write an amazing script may never even get to that position, but now you're trying to convince this group of creative team that you are also going to be the one to play this role. and there is no other option. How was that process for you?
Well, I was very lucky because Mike had an existing relationship with Jason Blum and Trevor Macy, and those were the only people we took this movie to. Because you're right, nobody else in their right mind in Hollywood is going to go, oh, a movie about a deaf girl, she doesn't speak, carried by an actress who has no credits? I'm so in! That just doesn't happen. And so Mike had a previous relationship with Jason and had done Oculus with Jason. And I also had gone out for many Blumhouse movies and gotten close without booking them. And so the combination of those two things, I think, really took us to the next level. Also, Trevor Macy, who is my producing partner, is a close friend of ours, and he was able to say, yeah, I'm pretty sure Kate can do this.
Yeah.
But he went out on a limb for me. They went out on a limb for me. Even Mike, who knew me very well and worked on auditions with me, you know, carrying a movie is a totally different game. And I said to him, while we were trying to convince people to let me do this, I was like, just wait, because there'll come a time around day 3 where I'm going to do something that's good, very good acting, and everybody will relax. And I actually remember the moment. It's the moment where Maddie turns over her shoulder and sees the man standing at the open window. And it was just this still shot, and I'm just looking over my window. And once Mike called cut on that tape, you could just feel the producers relax. Like, okay, she can do this. But up until then, I mean, I think people were kind of like 50-50 whether or not I was going to be able to act.
Oh my God. That must have been so much pressure, because I imagine you also felt pressure. Like you just said, you never had done this before. So you are under all this pressure trying to prove yourself to them and also to yourself.
Yeah, it was a lot of pressure. I wasn't sleeping much. Because I think as actresses, we all wish for this big break. We all like, I can do this. I know I can do this. And you have to have a certain amount of like almost blind faith in yourself to get through all the rejection, to get through all of the auditioning. And I think when you're given the opportunity, your first big opportunity, for me at least, there was a good moment of, oh my God, was I fooling myself? Can I do this? But you can't present that to the outside world. Yeah. They need to believe that you can.
Absolutely. Well, you did an amazing job. It's a very challenging role. Obviously, you had to learn sign language. You had to really embed yourself in the deaf community to really handle her and make her realistic. And so that's not just normal acting in a role. Now you're adding on top of it all this extra kind of research and
maybe.
We have another little star in the background.
Sorry.
No, it's quite all right. So, I guess my point was just that you were able to, through coaching and everything, really handle that aspect of Maddie as a deaf woman.
Thank you. It actually was, there was a whole part to that I didn't quite know when I signed on to the project, which is how insulting it was going to be to the deaf community for me to take on a role playing a deaf woman. And I did, after I realized my mistake, I tried to do a lot of outreach and research and listening more than anything else, just to say, you know what, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And it was a really eye-opening experience about privilege, because it didn't occur to me that we should have maybe reconsidered the use of deafness, or at least reached out more to the community at the time. But I'm glad for the opportunity. I was deeply embarrassed for a long time, didn't quite know how to handle it. And now I feel like, well, I learned a lesson. So that's nice. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure my son is alive now.
No, that's okay. You are a new mom. You have a little son who is 6 months old. So obviously making everything that you're doing just a little more challenging, a little more
real
wonderful.
I'm doing a movie about this experience right now, so.
You're writing one? Is that what you're
well, without giving too much away, yeah, I'm writing a movie about the experience of birth and the first few months of a child's life.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait for that. I want to talk a little bit more about, hey, there he is. Oh my goodness. Hey, bud. Look at his eyes. Hi. Oh my God. He's so cute. I can't focus now.
Sorry.
No. This is amazing. This is perfect. No, because I did want to talk a little bit about kind of your role as a woman in Hollywood and how multifaceted it is at this point. So not only are you an actress and you were able to portray this character, Maddie, who is this like superwoman. She's really an amazingly powerful heroine. But you're now coming at it from behind the scenes, which is still predominantly male in Hollywood. And also juggling another powerful woman role of being a mom. So how has that been for you in the past 6 months?
You know, it's interesting. Having Cody has kind of changed my focus in the sense that it doesn't often make sense for me to take acting work right now that gets me away from him for a day, for 18 hours, just to do a quick co-star. And it's also, writing is something I can do while I'm a stay-at-home mom. Like, I can take the time out to play with the baby and then write while he's napping. And so it's also, I think, taken away a little bit of my desperation, which I think I struggled with a lot at the beginning of my career. I just wanted it so bad, and I think it got in the way of my being able to be good at my job. And now what I want so bad is to like cuddle with this little baby. And so it makes it easier for me to not take auditions personally, to not take writing notes personally, because I know that this little kid will always be needing me and I'll always need him.
Yeah, it definitely adds a completely different set of priorities and perspective to everything. I know when you're doing this for a living and you're working as hard as you possibly can to work as an actor, you're kind of in this position where you have to take whatever you can get, and that's a weak position to be in, really. But you're able now that you're coming at it from like, you're a writer, you're creating your own characters, you're sort of able to carve out this other path for yourself. Now that you've established yourself as a successful writer, how has the industry, well, I think so, because this was your first entrance into the industry as a writer. You've had all these other jobs as an actor, so someone could sort of say, like, she worked her way up. But this was like, you came out the box with a film that has this like cult following. People love it. I mean, it was so good. And I can only imagine that the industry now has this like different opinion of you. Have you felt a shift in how you're viewed?
I have. I wish it wasn't like this, but just the fact that I have carrying a movie under my belt really has. Just, it's made getting in doors easier. It makes people more responsive because I can point to something that I've made that I can stand behind. It won't ever be my first time again. So when people look at me like, oh, could she be a part of the series? Oh, could she carry this movie? They don't have to just have blind faith. They can look at Hush and make that decision for themselves.
Right, exactly. So how do you feel as a woman being in this role of writer? You have now sort of this access to behind the scenes, you know, what is actually going on, you know, how the sausage is made. How has this experience been for you?
It's been wonderful and terrible. So this is what I would say is, it's not as bad as I thought it was. It's not a literal old boys club where they all smoke cigars and call you toots. But there's still work to be done.
Yeah.
But for example, I was taking a pitch out last week, and I would say at least half of the executives I met were women. And that was awesome. However, it's still an uphill battle to have a female-driven story, a female main character, if it's not a horror film. It's not like a real uphill battle. If you don't have an actress like a Reese Witherspoon attached already, if they're like, the main character is a scientist, it's a dude, right? Well, no, it's definitely a woman. But I'm able to create my boundaries now in a way I couldn't before and say to them, this is just the way it's going to be. It's going to be female lead, and I'd like to work with female executives. And what female directors do you have on staff? And if they don't want that, that's cool, because I have other people to talk to. So.
Yeah, wow, because that's always the question. It's like, where is this issue really coming from? I mean, I cannot imagine that it is because there aren't talented, smart women available to do these things. I can't imagine that it's because people don't care about seeing roles like this. So it's sort of like what's coming first.
Well, I think part of it is the unfortunate fact that a lot of Hollywood networking takes place outside of the office.
Yeah.
So think about the people, maybe not you or me, but like think about the people normal white men hang out with. It's normally other white dudes. And so it's not very often that a white executive is having dinner with a minority writer, female writer. They just don't cross social paths. I don't think they're doing it on purpose. They just don't, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so when pointed out, most men in power will be like, oh, you're right, absolutely. But their instinct isn't to change it just because it doesn't come up in their thought process every day. They don't think about that because it's not happening to them. But some of them do. I do think there's movement being made. And I think women need to raise each other up. I think we need to work with only other women. They need to recommend writers that are female. They need to tell the stories that are female. And I think that is the key, is that we need to not work against each other, but with each other.
Yeah, I totally agree. And lucky for you that you're in a position now where you can actually help to change that motion. You know, I think right now Wonder Woman is such a big deal because it's the first blockbuster like this with a female superhero directed by a woman ever. And it's 2017. It seems totally crazy. But you're right. I think things are shifting. What do you think, Cody?
Cody says, in a world where Moonlight and Wonder Woman exist, I'm going to be fine.
Oh my God. He's the greatest. Okay, so you have a few things in the works. Probably can't talk too much about them. You sold a few of your scripts.
Yeah, I have a lot of writing coming up now, which is exciting, which means that you'll be seeing things in about 2 or 3 years.
Yes.
Written by Kate Siegel.
Exactly, because that's how long it takes for the kind of process to go through the motions. I know you can.
And then we'll to Atlanta soon to start shooting Mike's series, which is The Haunting, based on The Haunting of Hill House, and that's for Netflix as well.
Oh my gosh!
That'll be coming out probably in a year or two also.
Fantastic.
And my role in that is to be determined, so I can't really talk about what I'll be doing in that. But he has been announced. He's creating it. It's awesome. It's going to be scary, and it's going to be, you know, genre bending, and it's great for fans of the original book, and it's going to be really fun, kind of Stranger Things like ride.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. That is so exciting. You said you start doing that when you're shooting?
We'll start shooting in the fall.
In the fall? That is awesome. Well, Kate, thank you so much for coming on the show. And Cody, thank you for making a cameo. You're the cutest guest ever.
And accepting me as a mother.